Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 4 of this podcast. Welcome, Rob.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. I'm glad you dressed up today. I mean that jacket looks really, really nice over your wife beater.
I have sleeves on this t-shirt, but last time I think I wore a long sleeve with this jacket. My sleeves were out over my knuckles.
Yeah.
There last time, but it's good to see you, man. How was your week?
Very good, very good. All right, let's get started. Let's introduce Jake Novis, awesome. And let's begin. Well, why don't you just tell us a bit about yourself, Jake, and we'll get going.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Really happy to be here. Big fan of the show. I'm a
all one episode. All that one you've episodes, watched so far?
Yeah, I'm a realtor. Started as an investor 5 or 6 years ago, getting right into multifamily investments. Started a property management company a few years after that to dive more into full-time real estate. Realized I had a bit more passion for the acquisition side, so then I got my license this past year and just been helping on the client side, helping buy and sell investment properties and homes around Southwestern Ontario.
All right. Well, let's talk about that. So, how old were you when you bought your first investment property?
So my first one, I believe I was 16 when I started in looking at investments.
Was that 2 years ago?
And then I closed recently. Yeah, a few years ago for you, or what? And then I was around 18 when I got my first property. Joint ventured on a multifamily in Hamilton with a number of partners, family and friends, to get into that first deal.
All right. Well, sorry. I'm confused. So you bought your first property at 16?
18, sorry. Started looking when I was 16.
Okay.
Started the process.
What was the first deal you did in Hamilton?
First one I did was a sixplex in Hamilton. Rough area, rough tenants, but it was a cheap enter point, so around the $500,000 mark. Legal sixplex, all one bedrooms in the north end of Hamilton, where most people don't like to go.
Good old Westinghouse, wasn't it?
Westinghouse, so 13 Westinghouse, that was the first one. Fully renovated 4 of those units now, so a lot of turnovers and quite a bit different what it is now, and different tenant profile for sure.
Do you want to know what what am I trying to say here? My initiation to that area was I had a sixplex next door, maybe it was a triplex next door, listed. It was boarded up, so the only way to get in, I had to go down with my drill and unscrew the door so people could go see the property. And every time, there's that Chinese food restaurant at the corner. Yep. So every time I went, I was driving like a Benz truck at the time. And every time I went, the hookers would come down and be like, and I'm like, no, just here trying to sell this. I go, you guys are not helping. And then it got to the point where it's like been a month. And I'd pull in, they're like, have you not sold that thing yet? Like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing? And I go, well, again, you're not helping.
No, it's almost like Step Brothers. They were trying to avoid you selling that place at all costs, I'm sure. And I think they were in a couple of our units at one point as well.
Oh,
yeah? Mark, I'm sure you could have utilized them some way to help you with the sale, couldn't you, if you just had a thought outside the box? Was there a way maybe they could have...
Rob. Bought it in obviously a bad neighborhood, but you got it obviously decently cheap at less than $100,000 a door. How long ago was that again?
That was 2016, and we got that around $83,000 a unit, I believe. So all one bedroom units with coin-operated laundry in the building, purpose-built sixplex.
Wow.
Yeah. So 2016. What were you getting for rents back then from the crack?
So those tenants were probably paying around $600 a month if we could get them to pay it. A lot of those people just didn't pay at the time, or I know we had a seizure on one of those units. One was boarded up as well. At the time, it was probably around $500-600 a month in rent. And the most recent units we just renovated, just got them on the market. They're around the $1,500 mark, $1,500-1,600.
So in the last 7 years, you've basically raised the rents there 250%.
Yeah, approximately. Yeah, I would estimate maybe around $25,000 in renovations for the few units that we've done full gut jobs on, less for the others. Not going as high end in that building just because it doesn't really allow for it in that area yet. Common area laundry still does the trick in that area, and otherwise just cleaning up new kitchens, new baths. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, walk us through a bit of the process, because I mean, you're 18 years old. obviously you didn't have a job, right? You were going to school still, I would imagine?
Yeah, still at university in Hamilton, going to McMaster at the time, so couldn't qualify for anything. No income.
No income. Yeah.
Where did you, just backing up a little bit there, how did you get into it in the first place?
Yeah, so part of how I got into this deal as well as real estate, started learning when I was 16 early on. I kind of quickly saw, I attended a few RAIN events and networking events, kind of saw what people in the field were doing as well as Mark at that time. Knew I wanted to get into it, didn't know how, so started just networking and learning. My mother and some family members were getting into it at that time as well, so we started looking at how these deals work. I knew that I couldn't qualify for a student rental, which was my first choice. I wanted to get a student rental, rent it out to friends, live in that. That was my goal. But I didn't have qualifying income, so I couldn't get a mortgage. On the multifamily side, however, we quickly realized you can just use your debt service ratio and qualify with all the investors collectively on the commercial side. So that's why we shifted to going that route, started pitching to family and friends what the deals would look like and how we can do it, and then started looking at sixplexes. That was our first approach.
Yeah, nice. That's a really, and it's becoming a lot more of the norm now too, right? I mean, like to clarify on that one, when you're looking at the debt service coverage ratio, that was performance of the building, right?
Exactly.
Which was able to take off your personal borrowing.
Yeah, so we weren't really personally qualifying. Obviously, we had to qualify our net worth as all the investors, but just the building alone qualified for the financing, and we didn't have to show our T4s for that really at all.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and obviously that is a little more strategic and probably becoming more common. I'm sure you're seeing it more in the current market. A lot of people are going to the commercial side. I know a lot of our clients are going from 2 to 4 units, which was pretty hot over the last year, up to wanting to get into larger multifamilies now, kind of realizing that you have to get creative on the financing side, probably this year, especially now with rates more than ever. So that was kind of how we got into it then, but obviously it's a little more important as well now.
Yeah, it's definitely happening a lot more as we see times go on because, with the increase in the interest rates that we're seeing and the aspect that when that goes against your personal qualifications on the borrowing side of things, like you do have to get a little bit more creative. And now having especially a value add proposition like you had, you can actually take a look at it from the as complete valuation, look at the financing forward.
Like we were doing then and like a lot of our clients are now, you have to be doing a value add strategy or something to be able to make the numbers work. You can't really just go in and buy a turnkey property that's going to cash flow. And then you probably could, and now you still can, and you can still find some more, but it's a little more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, you can actually buy turnkey in Ontario. Like, you most definitely can, and then just on turnover, like you're getting rents up.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you improve the property to get the rents up, but I would tell you, you're probably like, even if you kept it the way it was, like you'd probably be $1,000, $1,100 a month. Now, obviously you want to improve the quality of the tenant, but if you bought something that was already nice right now, and in 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, the rents are going to be double.
Oh yeah.
Right. I guess that's a good point. Like not necessarily turnkey by it meaning it be a nice property with no renovations needed, but turnkey without upside is more difficult. But if there's always upside, and we always had a long-term view, like I'm in this for the 5, 10 plus year period, I think those rents are always going to be increasing to allow that to be a value add play no matter what the building's like.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I think in real estate in Ontario is having patience.
Yes. When we bought this property, I never would have expected the rents to be where they are now, but even if they went up to 1,100 like you said, we would have been good, and having that patience to just keep waiting is just going to pay off long term. If you can avoid selling and you can hold it long term, I think you're going to be in a good position.
Yeah, I think the most patient person wins because again, we're gonna flood Ontario with immigration, right? Like majority of immigrants are going to come to Ontario, at least at first.
And they're coming in trade certified, a lot of them too, right? They're ready for the workforce. That's another big difference.
Well, I mean, we just look at the job numbers from last month. There was 150,000 new jobs created, but like that didn't even touch the unemployment rate, right? Because that was everyone coming in. They were increasing the labor force, and they were moving right into the labor force, right? But they all need some place to live. And as we know in Ontario, do we build enough homes?
No.
Yeah, I mean, in every city, we're at a shortage every single year with how many you need to how many are coming in, right? So even if it's, just to let alone the immigration of 500,000 or whatever it is each year, but then on the work permits on top of that and everybody that's coming into these areas, and they don't want to go too far out. So what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, demand is only going to increase, and we're not increasing supply fast enough. That's why I still think that there's a good opportunity in Ontario to buy rentals.
I agree with you.
And that's why I'm willing to overpay a little bit in Ontario to buy rentals still.
Yeah, and I think in this current market that we're seeing here too is, again, it goes back to it. If you have any type of liquidity right now and you're ready to even buy, there's a lot of opportunity that's presenting itself. It's about weathering that storm, right? Just like you had touched on a little bit, Jake. Right? If you can get through this type of market climbing, as you're going to see that uptick here eventually, the gradual uptick that happens in, and you guys can attest this a little better than I can, obviously, from the realtor standpoint. But you're going to see that gradual uptick as we approach the spring market, right? And people are going to, get back out of their houses. There's still a lot of great opportunity that's out there, and just finding great opportunities.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the uptick in sales or also rents, I mean, in December, everybody was saying the rental market's cooling down, and is it going to start dropping again? It cooled off for a month or two, and it was slow, but rents are still strong. And I think even if we see a cool off, I mean, people still need to move into these areas, and
listen,
it's going to just continue.
That's seasonality, right?
Yeah.
Like December and January are always slower to rent your property. You never want to have a vacancy during those times, and then it picks up into nicer weather. People just don't want to move when it's cold out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, not that it's cold in Canada right now. Thank you, climate change.
Yeah. Still too cold for me, Mark. It is.
What? What happened there? Maybe we should name this soft serve.
Soft serve with Rob and Mark. That's such a great idea.
Crap. All right.
You were saying about like the gradual, or like, so the seasonality part. Right?
Yeah,
I think
seasonality.
that's a good point.
Yeah, so seasonality is hugely effective in the rental market. People just don't want to move when it's going to be cold, when there's going to be snow. They would rather move during, obviously nicer weather, and then there's a whole schooling thing and that type of. So people don't even look at this time, right? Unless they really have to. I mean, you can still find good tenants. It's just they're fewer and farther between.
So you mentioned the seasonality year to year. So obviously December slowed down. Things will pick back up in spring, like you said. But I think also looking longer term, real estate's always been cyclical. So I mean, obviously things are going to slow down this year. We're in a recession, but what happened last time that happened, and where do you see things going from there? Right? You can just kind of predict what's going to happen. Nobody has a crystal ball.
Nobody can predict what's going to happen.
But long term, I mean, real estate's always cyclical, so we kind of know what's happening and where that might go. Just
the demand aspect of things, though, I mean, is a really good point, right? As we get out of this pandemic, as we get, I shouldn't say that, right?
It's fine. You can say it. It's fine.
We're all thinking it.
Yeah. Immigration is actually starting to pick up. And this is a really good point that gets overlooked a lot, right? There is great inventory that's sitting out there and opportunities for investors to be able to jump on and to be able to buy a solid investment. The more people that are coming into the country that are looking for a place to live, and they're coming in with families, friends, whatever they may be, pooling their resources together, this is where we're going to see that gradual uptick, especially in the cost of homes, right? And I think in those situations, there couldn't be a better time to take advantage of something when you're actually in the position to be able to buy an asset, whether you're qualifying for it personally or commercial, and kind of get ahead of that curve, right? That's not timing any sort of market. That's just actually making a solid, sound investment decision.
So what you're really saying is be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy.
100%.
Yeah, thanks, Warren.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
It works. If it works, it works.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean it's so counterintuitive, right? How many people were you talking to last year at this time that were like, we got to get in because we're going to miss the boat? And I remember having a conversation with an investor. He bought his first property in August, and he's like, okay, we got to go. I go, relax. You finish your first one first. Deal of a lifetime is like the bus, comes along once a week. Mm-hmm. Just relax. And he came back to me, a couple weeks ago, and he goes, man, thank goodness I didn't buy like 3 or 4 like I wanted, that I took it slow. I did it right. I got a cash flowing property. It's obviously down in value right now because we're back in January 2021 pricing, right? We're 2 years that pricing. But he's like, it could have been a lot worse. I have a cash flowing property. I'm doing okay, and you can ride the storm.
And I think that's normal real estate investing if you really think about it, right? I mean, what we had during those times is such a spike in the valuation of properties, more so because of what people were willing to pay for them in a reduced interest rate environment, to the actual reality of real estate investing where it's slow, long, and boring.
Yeah.
Well, the best real estate is boring, and if prices are stable for the next 2 to 5 years, or even if they're down a little bit, it's going to be a lot easier for smart investors to make decisions that are going to help them long term, and like that guy's going to be in a good position versus, I don't know how many investors jumped on the FOMO during 2021, 2022, and are now maybe regretting some decisions. But yeah, just being smart about it, and if you can be patient like that guy, or just kind of plan long term, I think you'll be in a good position.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about your first one. What have you done since then? So that was 6 years ago, you said?
Yeah, roughly.
When you were like 13, right?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So humble.
So what have you done since then? Because I've known some of the stuff you bought lately.
Yeah, so since then, continue with my education in engineering. During that, we continued to try to buy multifamily properties with investors. So we scaled up to around mid-30 range of units over the next few years. We got another 6-plex, a 9-plex, and some other smaller things. During that, I was in school for engineering, decided that I really wanted to be in real estate full-time, so started a property management company to basically manage all of our properties internally, because we had a lot of struggles outsourcing that with just issues that came up over the years. You could get into a long list of that. But started a management company to take over my properties as well as some others for clients and friends and things like that. Did that for a couple of years. I was doing all the work myself as well. I was renovating these properties, probably did 10 to 12 turnovers hands-on myself with some of my friends, my family who are helping out as well, and decided that I was best at the acquisition side and my time was better spent doing that and helping others as well. So last year got my realtor license, joined the team, and have since been focusing on the acquisitions and sales side of things and running the management company as well, but having somebody look over that instead.
Yeah, because I remember having that talk with you, and you're like, "Oh, well, what should I do?" And I'm like, "Nobody makes money managing properties, right?"
Yeah,
like,
and some people do, and I've had that discussion with a ton of people, but I really found that it wasn't my strength also, and it's a lot of time and energy when you could be doing a lot more.
You know what? I think I have a really good manager out in Alberta right now, and the guy who owns the company, like, he owns a crap ton of real estate. So he basically formed it to manage all his own stuff and to have that, and takes on other investors now. But that's why he formed it, right?
Yeah, and I saw that with quite a few people who had a ton of multis. They either had their own internal management or just a full-time person watching it, or they had a VA doing it while they paid for the systems. And I really found that it's best to keep that in-house, or at least just to have that as a value proposition. So now when I'm working with clients or I'm looking at buying new multis, I mean, keeping your finger on the trigger for what rents are at in neighborhoods, what do tenants want, how do you lease a property, all that is complicated, and if some investors don't estimate that accurately in a project, you could get burned pretty bad. I had a conversation with somebody just last week who had a realtor that wasn't, an investment realtor, gave them some bad rental figures, and that could go poorly if you get sucked into that, right? So having that on our hand really helps me and my clients and my partners all just succeed and be a little better off.
Jay, do you offer those property management services for your clients as well?
I limit it, but we have done it with clients as well, so we do offer it. All of my clients, either whether I'm not managing the property myself, what I've done is we do lease properties as well for them, so they get those great tenants in, and they actually self-manage, so they just come to me with questions, and I'm here to help them out as they go. That way they can self-manage, because if you outsource management, it's expensive, like 8 to 10%. It can be quite substantial, and if that's on a turnkey property that doesn't really need a much hands on the ground or boots on the ground work, if they can take that on themselves, we can just kind of coach them through the process, help them place the tenants, and then they're way better off.
I didn't have a follow-up to that, Mark.
Do you need your laptop so you can have follow-up?
No, I feel like I need a coffee.
What do you got there?
No, I can't tell you. We don't talk about what's in our cups, do we?
Yeah, no,
it's a little spicy.
It's a secret. Hey guys, comment down below. Guess what's in our cups?
Yeah, guess what's in our cups. We saw it in the comments a little while ago, all over the last couple of weeks, about what's in the cup, and another comment said it doesn't matter what's in the cup. On this show, we're actually never going to show what's in our cup.
And it might be different from time to time.
Right, but if on the specific show you put in the comments what we had on in our cup that show, you'll get a DM from Mark or I. And there'll be something within that DM, maybe a prize or something of that sort. Hey, Mark, what do you think?
Sure.
That's a good idea. Let's be giving, Mark.
I said sure.
Always be giving. Okay, that's good.
Why are you continuing to sell? I agreed with you.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I wasn't a very enthusiastic.
I'm going to comment on this one then.
Yeah. Make sure Jake comments on this one.
How many properties did you get up to manage when you were doing it yourself?
When I was doing myself and I was still doing all the renovations, all the handyman work, everything, had around 50 units. We still have that, but now a lot of the hands-on work is outsourced, so we just do it all kind of at home in the office. But yeah, we're managing 50 units. Usually had 2 to 3 renovations on the go at a time, and it's all over Hamilton, Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, as far as the Kawartha Lake. So we were pretty spread out as well, which was really taking a lot of time and energy out of my schedule.
So how much time were you putting into those 50 units?
When I was working on them full time, that was 8 hours a week. It was everything I was doing for a year or two straight. I would say on the management side, if you were just running the admin stuff, you could get away with 10 to 20 hours a week for that number of units, probably 10 if you have your systems in place and aren't really doing much on the ground or in person. But it really scaled up as we were doing full-time renovations 9 to 5, catching up on management stuff in the evenings, placing tenants in the mornings or evenings around the renovations. So it really took up a lot of my schedule. Never mind the driving between the properties as well and everything that came up with it.
Would you do anything differently today?
I wouldn't. So I learned so much during that process about how tenants work, how these properties really operate. I use all the information that I learned over those years now to help my clients and myself estimate renovation costs, estimate what rents can be. And this is all going to really focus on providing great investment advice, whether it's, for me and my partners, because I'm going to scale my portfolio for the long term. And I'm working with a ton of clients now who are pretty active and excited about that. So we sit down and we run the numbers together. We look at a property and what we could do with it. And it's just so much easier having that hands-on experience. It's way easier to look at a property and know what you can do with that now.
Would you suggest, I know you touched a little bit on the importance of going through the management yourself as an investor. Is there a certain point for an investor that they would get to that you would suggest that they start to offload their property management to a company?
I think there's not a number, but it just comes down to where you're spending your time. Like if you're spending all your time dealing with those management issues and you know you could be doing a higher value task that's going to either move you forward or your business, I think it's time to move on. For me, I really was spending too much time on that and I really wanted to grow my business long term, so I had to, because I knew I couldn't spend my time on those tasks anymore. I needed to do something else. So I mean, you can start by managing maybe up to 5 units while working full time, because you can still deal with those things. Maybe once you get past 5 units to 10 units, it starts to become too much with emergency calls or having to run on site. And if you want to deal with it still, that's great. But once it takes away too much of your time that you find your limited growth and you can't really move forward anymore, I think that's the time to step away.
Now, I'm just going to point it out that Jake is an engineer. So he likes systems and models.
That's true.
So for someone like me, I had 2 properties and I was done with property management. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to put systems and models in place to deal with it. I was happy to pay someone.
Yeah.
I was super happy to pay someone. And I mean, back then you were cash flowing with paying someone, but I was super happy to get that off my plate because, again, and Jake realized this, he was just a little slower at it, which is okay, bud. It's okay.
Would have done it quicker, but yeah.
But he realized that he makes the money on acquisitions, right? The acquisitions and the plan of what that is moving forward and what that is to the end thing. It's not maybe doing all the work on the property.
Yeah, at the end of the day, looking back, I probably lost money by doing the work on a number of these projects when I could have made more by outsourcing them, because they would have been done quicker. They would have been a lot nicer. A few of my first ones that are my own properties, they don't look great, but they get the job done. And yeah, it would have been better off long term. I did have the learning experience, but I mean, like you said, so your first deal, the little bit amount of time to set up the systems just wasn't worth it. So that's when you realized, okay, one unit is enough, so I'm going to outsource because it's worth it, and the value you can create without doing that is well worth it.
I mean, I had 6 units when I brought in a property manager because it was...
So there you go. What did I say, 5? So...
He can't always be accurate on knowing his own portfolio plus your portfolio.
Too many units over the years, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of units.
What,
That's a lot of
6
Lego
units?
pieces. No, I'm just saying in general. I think a really good point that you bring up there, Jake, and Mark as well, is every investor is going to be a lot different, right? What's really important is, for me personally, I think it's important for an investor when they're first starting out to get a little bit of guidance, to get a little bit of help, whether it's from their realtor or referral that can be given within, and actually go through the process. Get some coaching behind it to understand the experience. And also about being more involved, even if you hire like a general contractor that you have working on your project, because I definitely don't suggest you subcontracting all of your trades, especially on your first project, but it allows you to be the boots on the ground to actually go through this process so you can actually learn. Because in order to outsource effectively and be able to train, because essentially you're managing the manager. When you get to that point, when you have a property management company, you're managing the manager. So when you get to that point, it's really important, I think, to have a baseline understanding at the minimum. Maybe you don't have the same systems or processes, but you know what it's like to work with a tenant.
Yeah, and I think just estimating your next project, that's key to have that experience. Whether you're doing it yourself once to learn it, or maybe you just partner with somebody who's been through it and can guide you, or you have a coach like Mark does coaching, whatever it is, to have the experience of somebody who's done it to know what to look for. Because I mean, we outsourced management on our first one, and I don't know how many tenants were put in place for what rent. I didn't really know how it worked. And then if I were to go to do it, I probably wouldn't be able to estimate rents better on the next one. Mm-hmm. So at least having been through it once, or having somebody who's been through it is key.
Yeah.
All right, have we flogged that dead horse already enough? Or?
Yeah.
I always get questions about, I'm a real estate investor. Should I get licensed? Should I not get licensed? Is it beneficial? Is it not beneficial? I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you at first. How do you choose between your deals and giving it to a client and all that fun stuff? So I guess number one is, why did you decide to get licensed?
Two main reasons. The first is that I wanted to help find a tool that I can use to build my portfolio in the long term. So had the management experience, obviously could run the acquisition side and manage these properties, but long term, I took a look at who was successful in the space and what tool and resource they had in the industry to help them grow. The management company is great, but I really wanted that acquisition side. That's where I excelled, and I just was missing that piece of always relying on somebody for the information I needed or the deals I wanted to see. So having that final piece was pretty key for me. Now I can explore every property that's available and really have a foot in the door to succeed for myself and my partners as well. And the other side of it is just to help our clients and other investors. So I'm going to be in this industry long term. I've really cemented myself with the management company, but I wanted to have something that would last long term that I could use. So taking on investor clients, looked at the coaching thing. I wanted to grow some sort of business in the space, but I felt that was the best tool that I could use to help other people do what I've done.
I think the active income there is helping you continue on with your portfolio as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, I want to grow the business long term. You can only do so much with income from rental properties. Cash flow is really just to keep the property and going. Once you have a unit turnover, all your cash flow for the past 5 years is gone. So to grow the portfolio, if I want to do with passive income or passive partners, I could do that. But I just wanted something else for myself as well to help grow the business. Left my full-time job, and so that was obviously a big cut to the paycheck. So this is just supplements that and keeps me going long term.
Supplements or allows you to take too many vacations?
A little bit of both.
Hey, he's allowed to jet set. I like to jet set too.
I'm not saying. I'm just
okay. You jet set as well.
He was minimizing it. That's all, and I just thought I'd poke fun at that a little bit.
True.
Like, geez, Rob,
I'm just
get on the same page here, Rob.
I'm on the same page.
Yeah,
That's
maybe we'll look at some cottages up north for our realty retreat, and yeah, the active income helps.
Yeah. All right. So tell us a bit about. Okay, you got licensed. You're working with investor clients. How do you? Yeah. What deals go to them? What deals do you pick up? Like, how do you work that?
I mean, there's an abundance of deals. I'm not gonna buy everyone. You're not gonna buy everyone. We have a large team of investors, and either way, whether I'm a realtor or not, I'm going to be an active buyer, whether I have my license or not. So if you're working with another agent, for example, and I was a buyer without my license, still able to look at that deal, still could pick that up. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be looking at every deal and buying every one that comes my way. I mean, we have so many deals across our desk all the time, and every one is a little bit different for different investors. And I just think there's plenty out there for people to look at, and I don't think that's ever going to be an issue.
Plenty of efficiency.
Yeah.
I'll be honest though, like back in Hamilton circa 2010, 2011, 2012, I probably had 4 buyers for every good property that was out.
4 that would work for that deal?
4 that would work
Yeah.
for that deal. And I would typically, if it was in multiples, I would typically have multiple offers that I was presenting myself.
Wow.
Right. And I'm curious, were you also offering on those yourself?
No, so back then my rule was I would buy the worst shit. If nobody else wanted it, I would take it. So there was a whole bunch of times when I'd put an offer in, we had it accepted. They walked for whatever reason. One time, Bank of Nova Scotia says we can't finance this house. It's leaning over and touching the other house, and I'm like, that's perfect. I love this. I'm in. That was a good one. Oh my God, the 3rd floor tenant. The bathroom was broken, so all they did was open up the window and shit outside of the window, and it went into the other person's eaves trough because it was over, like how it was hanging. Oh my God!
It's a good way to get your other tenants out.
Well, is why I bought it vacant. So
Okay.
I was gonna say, with the lean of the house, it would have hit the driveway or the dumpster.
No,
He was on the other side.
Hey man, you've seen those Hamilton houses,
Of
like they
course.
were that narrow in
Yeah.
between, right? Like it wasn't.
Most of them are touching.
Yeah, but no, it had a good lean. But I figured, like, it's a 120-year-old house.
Yeah.
It's not going to go anymore.
No. We actually had the same experience working with a client recently who was new to the stone foundation, and after looking at a few of them in Hamilton, realized, hey, these have been here for over 100 years. They're not going anywhere. You can tell right away if they've shifted over the years, but if they're straight and they're stable, then you're good to go.
Oh, I remember that one time, somebody came, we're like, we need to get an engineer out here. And I'm like, listen, if you want to pay for an engineer, I'm going to tell you exactly what they're going to say. They're going to say, yeah, that property's been there for 110 years. These are superficial cracks. But if you need to spend $500 to have that peace of mind,
Go for it.
go nuts. And they came out and they're like, Mark, you were right. Well, I've kind of seen a few of these. Like I can guess,
Yeah.
but all right. So, I mean, what specifically, obviously you're a real estate investor yourself, right? You've been doing this for quite a while. You have a good property management experience. You've been analyzing deals, running the numbers, doing the construction. So what extra are you bringing to an investor that's going to work with you outside of everything I just named?
Well,
I kind of took your...
all those things, plus, I mean, I joined this team for a reason. Obviously, yourself and all the other agents on our team, we're all investors, working with great teams around financing or our team. All of us are looking at every deal, and whether it's having the financing in place, or if you need a contractor, or if you need advice on how to tend the property, if I don't have the answer, which is I usually do for the residential side and all these rentals that we look at, somebody in our team does. So that was a big key factor for joining the team. And then, I mean, all this experience has just led up to me being able to provide that value for clients. And I think that's been helpful. When I first started, I had an investment-focused realtor, but I did go through a couple of deals where I didn't, and I know I missed some things that I probably should have caught that an investment-focused realtor would have had. And I really kicked myself after for not working with them. And I think that was pretty eye-opening for me to see what you need and what the best path forward is.
I think that just solidifies the extreme importance of working with investors as your team, right? And maybe they don't have the answer, but they have access to a network that has the answer, right? Or access to a specific contractor in a specific area, for example. But I think that takes off a lot of the weight off of a shoulder of especially a newer investor in terms of actually making probably one of the biggest financial decisions that they're really ever going to make.
Yeah, I mean, this is one property is a huge investment, and if you a lot can go wrong, but also a lot can go right. And if you miss something, which is easy to miss, there's a ton of things to look for while purchasing. It can come back to bite you.
Jake, do you ever get the question, would you buy this from any of your clients?
All the time.
Yeah.
And I'm honest. And like you asked, if we're going to buy every deal that our clients are looking at, I mean, I want our clients to succeed. I'm going to let that happen first before moving my portfolio forward. I'm doing one deal a year. That's all I'm doing right now. For example, I'm not going to buy everything. But I'll be honest about if I would. If I was in a position right now to buy this property and this was my strategy, yes, I would buy this. Or no, because of X, Y, and Z, right? So
That's pure honesty right there, right?
Yeah.
It's not just actually looking at it as a transaction. That's a relationship.
Well, it's so funny. I used to get that question all the time. If this is such a good deal, why don't you buy it? I'm like, listen, you're not going to be upset if you walk away from this deal and I buy it. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, no. Like, I would buy this deal in a heartbeat, and I can. So if you don't want it, I'm probably going to buy this. And I ended up with, I had some home runs with people just walked away from.
Yeah.
Hoarder houses, the leaning house. There was one hooker in the basement. There was it was all graffiti upstairs. Oh, it was great property. Got a fourplex for $130,000.
When did you buy
Hamilton,
Hamilton, like 2011, 2012 on Norway Avenue.
they're just free then.
Free. It was a power sale too.
that? Wow, that's a really good deal. You still have that?
Nah, I flipped it.
So did you have clients look at that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they walked away. Why?
I walked away because, it was like lots of graffiti in it, garbage everywhere. I'm like, okay, coat of paint, a couple dumpsters, we're good, right? Like, this is easy.
Was
Like,
the
that
area
was the easiest one?
Was the area secondary to that? Like, did the area have anything to do with that at all, or was it just?
Area was okay. It wasn't
Yeah.
great. It's a lot better now. It's still probably. It's still downtown Hamilton, right? Like, it's still. You'd still get some characters, but like it's fine. It was okay back then. We had great tenants after we cleaned up the property. Ooh, we did have an overdose in the back. Didn't die in the property though.
Oh,
Ambulance
thank God.
came. But yeah,
Was it a good party?
I don't know.
But yeah, like that for example, though I've worked with realtors before briefly where it seems like every deal they look at, they say, oh yeah, that's great. But having the honesty of, yeah, I'll buy this if you don't, or I would buy this, or I know somebody who's going to. Yeah, it's just the honesty there, and yeah, I think that's pretty key.
What are you seeing your clients looking at? What's the interest? What type of investments are they looking at specifically?
I think a lot of clients who over the past 2 years were in this single family and duplex phase, which was almost everybody it seems like, are all starting to look at the next step. They all did pretty well over the past couple of years, and they're trying to move up. So the 2 to 5 unit range right now, we're seeing a lot of opportunities. There's a lot more coming on the market, and those deals, they don't cash flow necessarily, but they're close, or there's an easy opportunity to do so. So there's some great opportunities there. We do have clients looking into larger 6+ units as well. Those have been sitting on the market usually for quite a bit longer, take a little bit more time, but there's some opportunities there too. I think a lot of the sellers are stuck at last year's pricing, so we're having a bit of discrepancy there, trying to get them to come down, but they're just sitting on the market longer, and we're waiting for them to come down, and then we're just lowballing and waiting and lowballing and waiting. So a lot of opportunity, I think, in the 2 to 5 unit range, and a lot of investors moving into that space.
Yeah, that's a good point, because as you start to get bigger as well, more doors start to open for the way you can finance these deals too, right? Like once you start getting into 5+, you start getting to CMHC, you get out of the residential space, you get into commercial financing, pretty much an infinitely scalable type opportunity. Right?
Yeah, as long as you have a good mortgage broker.
Yeah, I can help you with that.
You know one?
Yeah. What's his
I
name?
know one.
her
It's
name,
me,
right?
actually. Oh my goodness, it's this guy right here. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
Yeah, the financing is one side of it, though, that a lot of investors are, I guess, realizing as they try to scale up.
Yeah.
A lot of questions, and it's all new to them, so it's something that we're working with, and you're working with them too. I know, to help them. I know they want to look at these deals, but then they have to realistically find out, okay, how much capital do I need to get in? Because it's not the same as residential where you can get 80% in everything. So they kind of have a bit of a realization there, but just need to do some work to make it work.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, your education and helping with them with that too to get to that next level. Is that deal on Balmoral still available?
No, it was sold conditionally. Yeah.
It did sell
Off of that,
conditionally?
I think it's sold.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to check what it's sold.
We won't
for,
touch
but-
on that one today, but that was a really good deal for somebody that had a lot of capital.
Well, I mean, they priced it for multiple offers.
Of course.
It was going to sell. It had to sell. But yeah, I mean, that was a great 6plex in Hamilton we looked at. We had a client looking at it, send it to you. You ran all the numbers on what it could be, what the financing is, and what it could be if you turned over the renovations. So yeah, having a team like that present you a deal, our clients didn't jump on it. I'm sure they're going to look back on it and wish they did. But yeah.
That was a decent one for need a lot of capital. But I mean, a lot of those still exist, right? There's still opportunities out there that you're seeing like that.
Yeah, those ones do need a lot of capital, but they work well, and and they can be found. The smaller deals obviously don't need as much capital, and you can probably be a little quicker to turn them over. But those larger deals, a lot of opportunity there. Just more capital needed to get in, and a longer, I guess, strategy to get in. Not quite for a newer investor, but you need somebody on your team who's dealt with it before.
All right, so we're just wrapping up here, Jake. Anything else you want to leave the audience with before we sign off?
I think a lot of people are excited about where the market was last year, and now they're trying to think of where to go from here. So everybody under the sun has a ton of different real estate plans, like Airbnb or I want to buy a 20-unit building. The investors I've worked with that are most successful, I think, probably just focus on the most important next step, and I think that's pretty key right now. Just figure out what your goal is. Don't worry about everybody else. Just see what you want to do. Make a plan. If you need, financing before you get that property, get a mortgage broker and get it figured out. If you don't have a realtor, get a realtor and get it figured out. Make your plan and just focus on your next step.
All right.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming, Jake. We definitely appreciate you stopping by. I know it's a long commute for you, so appreciate it.
I'm gonna head next door now and get back to work. So thanks for having me, guys.
That's it.
Thanks a lot,
Get back
Jake.
on the
Appreciate it.
phones. Jesus,
Will do.